Let's move on. Have a look at the newspapers here in France, as we do at this time every day, and almost every day. Flo's here with it, and she's here today. She's got a newspaper with her today. It's
Which one?
Le Canard Enchainé, I suspect, Flo. Last week, if you've been following this, Satirical Weekly revealed that the Conservative presidential candidate François Fillon's British wife, Penelope, was paid €500,000 for allegedly a fake job as his parliamentary assistant, and it's going further.
That's right. I told you we'd be talking about the Canard Enchainé. Well, check out this week's edition. You can see more revelations about the so-called Penelope-Gate. L'édition flambe. The bill is starting to get really big because according to the Canard Enchainé, Penelope Fillon was paid a lot more than €500,000. In fact, she was paid €831,000. And according to Le Canard Enchainé, it's not just his wife. His kids are involved as well. They say that Fillon used €84,000 to pay two of his children that had also been hired as parliamentary assistants. So things are getting a little bit complicated for François Fillon. You can see here on the front page, the Canard Enchainé is imagining what maybe he told investigators. You might remember he was grilled this week by the police. He's saying, look, I'm telling you, Penelope didn't do anything. But that is precisely the problem.
That's precisely the problem, yeah, exactly. We had a little bit of a sneak preview because, of course, the newspaper was revealing a little bit about this yesterday evening, wasn't it? So the papers have had a bit of a chance to react to it. And they're also wondering, of course, what repercussions it could have for his presidential campaign.
That's right. It really is front page news across France today. Let's start with Le Parisien, Aujourd'hui en France, saying, look, a very similar headline. They're saying, La facture s'alourdit. The bill is getting quite big here for François Fillon, and his candidacy is taking a real hit with this scandal. Libération, the left-wing paper, also says he's really taken a hit. He's plombé. It's kind of like a heavy load, a burden, kind of a lead burden that he's having to take on here. It's probably going to be devastating for his campaign. According to Libération, the damage is done in terms of public opinion. The flawless, irreproachable candidate, that's what François Fillon was to a lot of people. Well, you can see Libération saying this flawless candidate. Well, it turns out that he's been lying to the public. The only recent example of that is Jérôme Cahuzac. You might remember him, the former budget minister who was caught red-handed, actually being a tax evader himself. And so Libération says, Fillon's outlook is pretty grim. They actually say it's probably going to be end of story for him.
Lots of papers agreeing with that analysis. Things really not looking very good for Fillon's immediate, anyway, political future.
That's right. L'Opinion, the pro-business paper, wonders, can François Fillon hold? And they have a great cartoon today. You can just make it out here. You can see they've depicted François Fillon's 2017 campaign like a plane that is crashing. It looks a lot like that plane that crashed into the Hudson. You might remember it's recently been made into a film, Sully. You can see in the little caption there in the cockpit, Fillon saying, what do you mean the second motor is on fire? While his co-pilot saying, well, we hit a second flock of ducks, which is a very clever way of saying it because the Canard Enchainé, canard is a duck.
I see.
So you can see another revelation from the Canard Enchainé, this duck, well, it's taken out their motor.
It's always good to have Flo here to translate things for us, isn't it? Fillon, meanwhile, he says he's the victim of a widespread libel campaign, a sophisticated, if you like, character assassination.
That's right. You can read more about that in the Huffington Post. He says this is a professional job, unprecedented in the Fifth Republic. Now, he says, look, the case has been brought to investigators. He says, I have confidence in the justice system. I'm confident and serene. He says he's just going to wait and see until the end of the investigation.
Could be a bit dangerous. I mean, Fillon's might be calm on the face of it. Papers already started to look ahead, though, and wonder what worst-case scenarios might be here.
That's right. L'Obs wonders what would happen if Fillon stepped out of the race. Now, Fillon himself recently said that he would drop out if he was mis en examen, that is, put under formal investigation by an investigative judge. Now, according to L'Obs, this scenario is actually unlikely because it takes a lot of time to put this kind of thing in place. That being said, L'Obs points out that it seems like justice is moving very quickly on this, so perhaps the timing will be shrunk a little one on this.
We've only got 3 months to go, though, haven't we, till the election? So Fillon's party, all very well aware of all that, of course, bracing itself for the worst.
That's right. There's a very interesting analysis piece in Le Figaro today that says, look, on the surface, the party is backing him 100% in public. But when you look what's happening behind closed doors, it's a different story. Les Républicains are already starting to brainstorm about plan B. There are all sorts of names that are flying around for, I guess you could say, a potential emergency replacement. We're hearing about François Barouin, Valérie Pécresse. These are familiar names in Les Républicains. What about the people who actually ran against François Fillon in the primary, though?
Yeah.
Well, Alain Juppé has already said that he wouldn't go for it. Nicolas Sarkozy, however, he's been a little bit more quiet. He hasn't said anything yet. And I guess it's in times like these where you see who your real friends are. And there's a great cartoon today in Libération by Willem, where you can see the Fillon couple falling off a cliff. François Fillon asks his wife, "Where is everyone?" And she says, "Well, after the fictitious jobs, we're seeing that we have some fictitious friends."
Yeah, there's no hands, is there? Reaching down, trying to pull them back up again. François Fillon is not the only one in hot water over alleged fictitious jobs, though. Far-right leader Marine Le Pen, she's in trouble with the European Parliament.
That's right. You can get all the details in Le Monde. Now, remember, Marine Le Pen is an MEP, a member of the European Parliament, and she's accused of hiring a parliamentary assistant using European funds. Now, there's nothing illegal about that, except for, according to investigators, this assistant wasn't actually working for the European Parliament. She was working for the Front National in France. Now, the European Parliament has asked Marine Le Pen to reimburse the 300,000 euros that they gave her to hire this parliamentary assistant, but she's refusing to do so. She says she's being persecuted.
Okay, and the parliamentary assistant in question here has been actually questioned by the European Anti-Fraud Office.
That's right, and L'Obs got their hands on the transcript of that grilling. You can see a photo of her here. This is Catherine Griset. Now, according to her contract, she has to live and work in Brussels, but investigators found that she had no bills to her name in Brussels and apparently no apartment either. And she says, well, the answer to that question is very easy. She was living with friends who graciously put her up while she was working in Brussels. So she has very nice friends, apparently. Now, another thing that
On the sofa. Yeah.
Exactly. Another thing that came up is that she rarely showed up in parliamentary logs, you know, like when you beep in with your badge to get in and out of buildings. She rarely came up. And so she also had a very easy answer to this. She said, well, that's because she used to carpool with Marine Le Pen and enter through the garage using Marine Le Pen's badge. So Marine Le Pen apparently beeped her in every time she had to go into the parliament.
CCTV we're on to next.
Exactly, but also that is a protocol rule that is banned by the European Parliament. You're not allowed to go in through the same door. Anyway, you can see L'Obs isn't really buying her story, and they're actually calling her Marine Le Pen's ghost assistant. So this is also another potentially complicated story that I'll be probably talking about a lot more in coming press reviews.
I think Flo probably will. A lot of scandal.
So much scandal. And the presidential election is so close.
Exactly. 3 months to go. Thank you very much, Flo. Flo with the papers on France 24. She'll have the international one in a couple of hours' time, of course.